Clive Bell was part of that circle around Virginia Woolf, and not a very nice man from what I understand, but he distilled this idea that beauty exists in things, and it's our brain that recognizes beauty, and it's the artist who crafts beauty, and then the kind of recipient that recreates kind of vicariously the process through the aesthetic experience. And the whole idea was that there are significant forms, and these significant forms are art. And how do we know them? We know them because we see them. So that's a very wonderful circular argument, and anybody like Clive Bell or Immanuel Kant can be very comfortable in the imperative of the common perspective. But for those outside that circle of intellectual elitism, it's not a very satisfying criterion for defining art. So once I became acquainted with some neuroaestheticians who were working on shape with monkeys. They plant little things in their heads, and we're discovering that individual neurons, one neuron, has a response potential to a shape. An aggregation of neurons has a response potential to an object, a shaped object. And it's just a whole bunch of curves that are aggregated together. No one neuron owns it. I mean, this may seem a little weird, but it's true. And so this guy was using monkeys and Henry Moore's. So he decided he would use Jean Arp instead, because Henry Moore has holes in it, and Jean Arp doesn't have any holes in it, which made it even easier because you only had exterior shapes to deal with. And he went to human subjects. Now, with human subjects, you don't implant a little wire in a neuron, but you use affective. You just ask them. So he concocted this experiment in the lab, which had 104 different groups of blobs. And many of these blobs were actually deformed ARPs along certain algorithmic formulae or whatever. I never quite figured that out, but they'd get blobby and fat toward the right and skinny and pointy toward the left. And so we did this in the museum with 10 sets, and people put on little 3D glasses and you look at them. And all you had to do was circle the one you liked the least and the one you liked the best. And as it turned out, this isn't rocket science, but it was sort of funny, the real, quote unquote, undeformed ARP was always right in the middle. So if you ever figure that out and you saw it as a contest, which it was not, it wasn't so hard to get the right answer. In any event, there was a huge degree of aggregation. Surprise, surprise, just to the lower left of the original. And what I mean by that, just slightly rounder and blobbier. Now just hold that thought. Hold that thought, and I'm going to provide an answer. So what in effect are we learning? People like soft, blobby things, right? Okay. So I'm talking about a subject not unlike this with a guy, another neuroscience guy. And since he knows I'm a medievalist, he gave me this paper. And the paper was, why does the Virgin Mary always hold the Christ child on her left arm? It has to do with right eye bonding. The child's dominant right eye can engage with the mother's face. So here it was in medieval art. There's a whole special term for the fact that Christ child is on the left arm. In fact, it's believed that St. Luke, in a miraculous way, painted the portrait. So the one in Czestochowa and the one in, Our Lady of Vladimir, they're all the same, almost all the same. And so there's a theology, in effect, for something that in fact is biologically determined. So if you kind of weave that notion of the right eye dominant child engaging with the face of its mother and scroll back to the soft round shapes, it all has to do with children and nursing. So what I'm saying is evolutionary biology has a lot to do with aesthetics. And that gets you back to the basic question, what good is art? And if you could answer what good is art, you wouldn't have to advocate for it because you would know what it was good for. Like iodine and salt, like fluoride and water. If you don't have it, you're missing something. So my advice to anybody who's struggling with that question is go to Lascaux. because there's no place in the world that art is more gratuitously present at a higher degree of quality than in that cave painting. It's so incredibly good. There is no practice, there's no erasure, and nobody knows why in the hell it's there. Right? So if you can answer that question, it's got to be something that's hardwired into our head. And it has to be utilitarian. It has to have benefit. It has to have value. And the answer is perhaps very easy, but it deserves critical thinking, deserves thought. And it should be obvious to those who don't even care much about it personally. You know, I might not care about going to a park, but I value the presence of parks. I might not care personally about the upland gorilla, but I think there should be some.